Welcome to Lecture 15.2, in which we will go over community ecology. Our learning objectives for this video are to understand the competitive exclusion principle and why different species within a community have distinct niches, describe predator-prey and symbiotic relationships between two species, understand the role of foundation and keystone species in the structure of a community, distinguish between primary and secondary succession, and evaluate the importance of biodiversity for human life. Remember that in the context of ecology, community refers to all living organisms within an area. Community ecology is a study of the relationship and interaction between two or more populations of different species that are in the same geographical area and how they compete for resources. The habitat is a geographical area where a species lives, such as the ocean or the forest, or in the case of some microorganisms, the gut. A niche includes all the living and non-living resources used by a species, and can also be thought of as the role or the job of a species in the habitat. Some species are considered to be generalists, which means that they have a broad niche. Raccoons, for example, aren't very picky about what they eat or where they scavenge for food. Other species are specialists and have a narrow niche. Pandas, for example, just want to eat bamboo. Each species in a habitat must have its own unique niche. The competitive exclusion principle is the idea that two species cannot occupy the exact same niche in a habitat because they would be competing for all the same resources. Ultimately, the species that is better at accessing or using the resources would drive the other species to extinction. For example, Paramecium aurelia and Paramecium caudatum are both unicellular eukaryotes that occupy the same niche. When grown alone under the same conditions in a laboratory, both will initially thrive until the resources available run out. However, if they are grown together, P. aurelia will end up outcompeting P. caudatum, exhibiting the same growth as if it were grown alone, while the P. caudatum dies out. When it comes to interactions between different species, there are a few common types of relationships. One is the predator-prey relationship, in which the individuals of one population consume the individuals of another population, such as lynxes eating rabbits, or rabbits eating grass. Another is symbiosis, which is a long-term relationship between individuals of different species, such as the one between clownfish and sea anemone. Predator-prey relationships can lead to cycles of varying population size. For example, this graph shows the population size of the snowshoe hare over time in red and the lynx over time in blue. Since the lynx eats the hare, an increase in the population of the snowshoe hare means increased availability of food for the lynx. This causes the lynx population to also increase. More competition leads to fewer resources, as more hares are hunted down and their population size dwindles. With less access to food, the population of the lynx also decreases. This allows the hare population size to increase again, and so on. Because of these dynamics, the cycle of population size for the predator generally lags behind the cycle of population size for the prey by a few years. Symbiosis can be divided into three categories. One is mutualism, in which both species benefit from the relationship. The clownfish seen previously, for example, helps drive off fish that eat the anemone, while the anemone provides shelter and protection for the clownfish. Pollinators and the flowers are another common example, with pollinators like bees getting food from the flower, while the flowers get fertilized, allowing for reproduction. Commensalism is a relationship in which one species benefits, while the other species doesn't benefit, but also isn't harmed. One example is the remora, which is a fish that survives by suctioning onto another larger animal, such as a turtle seen here. The remora is able to get protection and also food in the form of the host species, while the host just continues about its day. Parasitism is a relationship in which an organism harms another organism by feeding upon it but not immediately killing it, allowing it to drain nutrients from its host for an extended period of time. Cordyceps, for example, are fungi that mainly infect insects such as ants and wasps, invading and eventually replacing the host tissue over time. This allows the cordyceps to control the host body, and once it's ready to reproduce, it will burst out of the host and release its spores. The relationship between all of the species within a habitat is very complicated, but community ecologists aim to understand the structure and dynamics of a community. Foundation species are a key component of the community structure. They are considered to be the base of the community and have the greatest influence over its overall structure. Without them, the community would not be able to exist as it is. They are often autotrophs, such as the trees of a forest or the kelp in the ocean, but not always, with corals that make up reefs being one example. In these cases, they are able to physically modify the environment they are in, producing habitats that other organisms can live in. They also have relatively high abundance relative to other species in the area. Keystone species are another important component of a community structure. These are species with a large influence on maintaining the community structure and sometimes its biodiversity, despite having relatively low abundance. Some of them are predators at the top of their respective food chain. Their predation helps prevent the population size of some species from becoming too high. For example, sea stars are predators of mussels, so when starfish populations decline, mussel populations increase. This has a detrimental effect on the community because the mussels are able to quickly outcompete the other organisms, leading to a loss of biodiversity. Similarly, sea otters are important for keeping the population of organisms like sea urchins in check. When sea otters were hunted for fur, this led to a drastic increase in sea urchin population, which then fed so heavily on the kelp forest that the foundation of the community was removed. Removing keystone species can therefore lead to a complete alteration of species composition in the community, and can also reduce biodiversity. Communities can, of course, change over time. Community dynamics are changes in community structure and composition over time. These changes can often occur due to environmental disturbances, such as natural disasters. Primary succession occurs when a new land forms, or when a natural disaster wipes out all life on a previously existing habitat, allowing for a new habitat to take its place. For example, a volcano eruption would destroy all life. The lava forms new land, but initially does not support life. Over time, as abiotic factors such as weather wear down the land and make it habitable for life, pioneer species such as lichen, fungi, and succulents that can survive under harsher conditions will begin to recolonize the land. After some time, more species will move in and eventually become more abundant than the pioneer species. Secondary succession occurs when most life in an area is killed, but the soil can still support life and vegetation. The remnants of the previous community are then able to rapidly recolonize the area. For example, a wildfire will clear out many species in an area, destroying trees and killing animals that were unable to flee. With the trees gone, other plants now have more access to sunlight, allowing these plants to begin growing. Eventually, the habitat will resemble the community that existed prior to the event. One of the important aspects of the community is its biodiversity. As mentioned, removing foundation or keystone species can be detrimental to an existing community and decreases biodiversity by decreasing the number of different species living in the habitat. There are of course many reasons why biodiversity is important for humans. Many of the medications, as well as things like caffeine, are derived from natural chemicals produced by plants, fungi, and bacteria. This is an illustration of some of the plants we use for medicine. Crop diversity is also important for agriculture. If there is low crop diversity, a single crop can easily be wiped out by disease, leading to famine. In a more recent case, changes in climate and susceptibility to diseases is leading to decreased harvest of cacao beans, which in turn is leading to chocolate shortage. We also rely a lot on wild food sources, in particular fish. Maintaining marine ecosystems and biodiversity helps ensure continued access to seafood. In this lecture, we learned that two species cannot have completely overlapping niches because one species will outcompete the other for the same resources. Two species can have a predator-prey relationship in which one consumes the other, or a symbiotic relationship, which is a long-term relationship between two species that can be mutually beneficial for one but not the other, or beneficial for one while harming the other. Foundation species help establish a community, while keystone species are important for maintaining the biodiversity within a community. Primary succession occurs when pioneer species colonize a region that was originally lifeless or where life was wiped out by a natural disaster, while secondary succession occurs when remnants of the former community remain and repopulate the area. Maintaining biodiversity is beneficial for the species that live within communities and for human life because we rely on biodiversity for things such as food and medicine. Thanks for watching.